Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. I'm here with Lacey White, and I'm offering a coaching session with her. And Lacey, I can't wait to get to know you better and see what comes up through this session. Thank you so much for your patience today. I've had some technical difficulties, but so is life these days. Lacey, let's hear a little bit about what is it you're up to now, and what is it you want to have manifest in your business in the next, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months. What's happening with you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Currently, so my offers are all centered around this concept of holistic fitness. And so my intention is to help people access a sense of wholeness within themselves, live an aligned life that feels healthy, offers them a sense of centeredness in mind and just wellness of the body. And so my primary work right now is working with a few one-on-one clients. I've done group coaching as well. And that is essentially holistic health coaching. So we're looking at the many facets of health. In addition to that, I offer standalone events, workshops, yoga classes, things like that. And as far as where I'm growing, I would love to lean a bit more into the client work. I've had some sticking points around getting new clients. So that's an area that I'm growing in. And then I would also love to extend these experiences that I offer into retreats, bigger experiences, maybe a full weekend, whereas lately they've just been kind of like 2 to 4 hours.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So let me ask, the people that you work with now, where are they finding you? How do they come to you? How do they find you? Or at least not just now, but over the last, how long you've been doing this for?
It's just been about a year that I've really been committing myself to it. Yeah. Can you remind me what you just asked?
Yeah. So over the last year, you've mentioned working with people one-on-one and then in groups, maybe for a couple hours. Where are they coming from? How are they finding you?
Yeah, a good majority of the people I've been working with are people that I've known already who have seen what I'm doing and are curious about it and want to try it out because they know me, they trust me. And so, yeah, the edge that I'm finding is how do I then get beyond people that I know and start to bring in more people.
Right. Thank you. And the people that you know, what's their experience been with this while they work with you?
I've been receiving a lot of really lovely feedback. So a lot of the people coming to me, they're pushing edges themselves where they have no idea what yoga is, or they feel like, they don't have the flexibility for yoga, or they don't have the spaciousness in their mind for meditation. And so it's a lot of people coming to these healing modalities sort of in a very beginner place. And so it's been lovely being able to offer that introduction to these modalities to them. Yeah.
Beautiful. Great. So it's a proof of concept. You've already had clients and you've already had good experiences. So we know that it works, right? So then let me ask your current ways of showing up out there in the world, which could be anything, by the way. What do you currently do to let people know what it is you offer? And by the way, is there a name for, let's say, your, like, whatever you would consider your main, like, one offering? Do you call it anything or?
Yeah. So my main offering is an 8-week program, and I call it Embodied You because the intention is really just accessing deeper embodiment. Yeah.
So then, does everyone you know that you offer this? And be honest with yourself. Like, do you think that most of your friends would say, oh yeah, Lacey offers an 8-week program called Embody You?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. And I think a piece of that is, I've offered the program, and then I took some time to integrate the lessons, restructure it. And then I offered it as a group program, took some lessons, integrating those. And I think during these off periods, I've just been really sort of, not doing anything to continue spreading the word. And it's like I'm waiting to get to a place of feeling ready to then share it. But I would love for it to be just a presence where people know that even if it's not something that I'm actively running, it's something that will come back around, and they know about it.
Great, thanks. You said wait until you get to a place where you're ready. What do you specifically mean by that? Like, what does that mean? Ready in what way?
Yeah, I think I have this element of wanting to know all the things, which I know sounds ridiculous, and I know that that's not not an attainable goal, but I catch myself in the areas that I'm maybe experiencing some imposter syndrome when I'm running the program, and I'm like, okay, I need to go do my own work for a bit, and then bring this out. So I think that's the readiness aspect that I'm thinking of, is just catching myself in these moments of feeling that imposter syndrome and feeling like I need to remedy that.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, by the way, it's a very normal thing that human minds, it's how the mind works. We want to know how everything's going to look and everything's going to be, and we want to understand everything. But, we're also human, so we can't. I always say, like, who out there knows everything? Who out there is the most present, embodied leader on planet Earth who's in charge of it? I don't know. Dalai Lama, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's really like, if we stop to think about it, like, who's the authority on this? Mm-hmm. But let's dig deeper into that. Can you give an example of where there might have been imposter syndrome coming up while working with people that you felt like, oh, okay, now I need to go back and learn more, or know more, or embody more before I go teach it? Is there a specific instance?
What's coming to mind is moments where, for example, in my group coaching call, where we'd be on a call, we'd be sharing about some topic or another. I don't have a really specific, concrete example that I'm thinking of, but it would be a situation where someone shared something challenging that they're going through. And within me, I'm just not having a question come up to ask them to help them take it a bit deeper, or I'm not necessarily feeling like I know how to respond. And oftentimes those questions do come up, and I'm able to facilitate a deeper exploration. But yeah, I think just those parts of me that are scared of the not knowing, feel like they need to have the perfect response in every situation.
Yeah. That's a lot of responsibility. The perfect response in every situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know, as coaches, healers, guides that want to help people, it's a very common thing. And I say we, because I went through it many years ago, but it's a common thing to feel that it's the coach or the healers or facilitators' responsibility to get people results, or tell people what to do, or guide people a certain way. But let me ask, like, when you figured out a way to do a deeper exploration in the moment, how did that turn out?
Yeah, it turned out beautifully, because I'm able to just sort of be this witness of a person in their own process, and I'm able to step out of the parts that feel like they need to do, so that I can just really be. And yeah, it's so cool, because then people just are able to come up with their own answers that they're looking for.
So there you go. it worked out not only really well, but it's kind of what people need, right? I just like to point this out because, by the way, imposter syndrome is one of the key. I don't even like to use the word issue because that presumes that there's something wrong with it, but it's a key symptom out there with so many entrepreneurs, and not just newer entrepreneurs. It's very prevalent in newer entrepreneurs, but many entrepreneurs in general. And I actually think it's becoming a real problem because I'm seeing so many people freeze up and feel like they need to maybe invest in 20 different trainings or just get constant training over and over and over for years. And it's like, well, in the end, what do human beings really need? As you just said, very often, or I believe, and I don't know, maybe it's not a universal truth, that most of the answers are already inside. And if you hold the space, then somehow it flows and people figure it out on their own. And if it doesn't, then that's okay too, because it's coming up for a reason. And no coach or healer is expected to have all the answers. And I would actually be a little apprehensive, by the way, if you worked with a coach or healer that had all the answers and was trying to tell you their way, because then what? Like, is that really you? So it's really just to point out the imposter syndrome of how if we start to see this from a different perspective of like, you know what? Yeah, like I'll always have that feeling. Like I still get some feeling sometimes, and not as much as maybe I did 10 years ago. But if you start to feel it and just acknowledge it, it's like, okay, it's a feeling. But then notice the truth is you handled it very well and it went well. And how did that turn out after that with that client? Like, was there any problem? Did this client complain to you?
No, no, there wasn't. It wasn't that. Yeah.
Have you had any clients complain or criticize or give you negative feedback? Like, oh, this was just terrible. And
Yeah, no, I haven't. I've only received positive reflections and feedback so far, which just really reminds me of my own judgmental parts that I sometimes take to be the reflection that I'm getting back from the world, and then really it's just these protectors of mind.
yeah. Oh, thank you for naming that and sharing the protectors. Yeah. I mean, and this is where, I love just thank you so much for being an example for people to see, it's a very normal feeling and to observe that, yeah, it's just this part of our being, our psyche, whatever it is that feels the need to, judge or protect, or maybe, like even the concept of like, well, maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I now need to go learn more or study more. So that was going to be my next question is, so these, this, and to see it as a protector. But when you feel like, okay, maybe it was a little crunchy or uncomfortable at these particular times with some of these clients, so now I need to integrate and get ready. What do you do in that meantime when you're getting ready for maybe like the next version of it? What is it you're up to?
Yeah, a few things come to mind. One of them is just really reviewing the feedback that I've received about which specific parts really resonated. And just like logistical notes around like timing and things like that. And so there's like that active restructuring component that is part of the process. Also my own personal work. So recognizing, as I'm holding this container for growth, recognizing where maybe I'm not showing up fully, whether that's like sharing about aligned eating habits and then I'm, just kind of like snacking on sweets late at night, just like things like that, where I'm just making sure that I'm practicing what I'm trying to share with others. And the self-reflection piece too around, okay, I noticed that throughout this iteration of the program, I had a lot of yeah, these young parts show up that have these fears that I know on some level, as we're talking about, I know that I don't have to know everything. I know that it's not my job as a coach to spew answers to everyone. And so just holding space with what is it that is so uncomfortable in those moments that's showing up, and how can I tend to these parts so that I can show up in my most embodied sense as I try to help other people access that embodiment. So yeah, those are the main pieces that I'm integrating, I would say.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and that's, that's important. I mean, I think everybody who is in this path of being of service is always constantly in a process of reflecting, like, what could I have done better, or how could that have gone, or what did I learn from this? But do you think there will ever be a time in your life where you're not doing personal work?
I hope not. No, I don't see that.
Yeah, and that's what I say to a lot of people. It's like, well, the kind of this growth path of evolution never really ends. There's nowhere to get to. It's like we're constantly going to be evolving and growing more as we serve more. And I actually believe being on the path of service actually expedites our own healing and growth, because it's like, okay, now it's beyond just us. And I don't know, this is what I've observed with clients over the years. It then catapults us to be doing the deeper work, like really digging in. But it's in tandem, like the service is in tandem with our own work. I don't think it's ever like, one or the other. It's like, it keeps happening, and there's going to be more and more and more, and it kind of goes upward from there. So it is great that you're pointing out that there's this kind of space to take and integrate and get ready. But then I also like to point out, like, well, what's stopping you from putting this out there tomorrow? Is there anything in the way of just kind of like bring it out to the world in a bigger way, starting literally today or tomorrow?
Mm. I don't really think there's anything there. One thought that popped in was just that I want to make sure, and maybe this is a bigger piece than I had realized, but wanting to make sure that I had the capacity in my own schedule, because I'm in a period right now where I'm recognizing just the level of overcommitment, and so I'm sort of shedding responsibilities. And so I think that that's been maybe another blockage there, because I'm hesitant to take on holding an 8-week-long container for someone if I don't have the full capacity to really show up. And then, yeah.
Yeah. And that's also very common. I mean, there's a lot of people where it's like a fear of, what if I have too many people, or too much, it's like taking too much of my time. And that's where I always say you can establish your boundaries, and say yes or no. But let me ask, like, what specifically is taking up the other time right now? Like, let's say you had someone contact you today and said, I want to start working with you for 8 weeks, like as soon as possible. What is going on that's in the way, or maybe just kind of limiting the capacity?
True. Yeah. Two things. One being that I've just been in this really inspired place lately, which I'm really grateful for. I have just ideas flowing in all the time. And so I think part of it is that I have a lot of half-baked ideas that are all kind of waiting. And so if maybe it feels like there's more on my plate than needs to be, like I don't have to go address all these ideas, that they can sit there and I'll find them and resurface them as it makes sense. And then the other piece is just, commitments to people I've been working with, or groups that I've been working with that have been so meaningful for me. And so it's hard to ease back or take a break, but yeah, also feeling like that's an area where I need to. You brought up boundaries, just recognizing where I feel at my limit and exploring how I can leave with love or scale back with love.
Yeah. Thank you. Between all these, like let's say your 8-week program or the vision of working with more people or with private clients or groups, and then the new ideas, and then are the people that you're working with paying you? The other people? Okay. Well, that's good. That's a good start. So between all of these different ideas and items, and then of course I call it's like the job. There's nothing wrong with having a job. I actually have a lot of clients with full-time or part-time jobs because I always say if that's a way to keep the nervous system calm while spending time and energy getting clients, and especially if people don't have some level of savings or some level of security for at least I would say a year, then it is good to be working for money. But then out of all the other items, what is most alive for you? Where, or even including the job or the jobs. If you could have anything in the next year, 2 years, or even in the short term, like 6 to 12 months, what's the one thing you would like the most?
In the next 6 to 12 months, I would love to, be consistently gathering people in person. And maybe that's another resistance that I've had around this program is it's been primarily online, finding clients online. And I think just after years of being almost completely online in all the roles I've played, in the next year, I envision hosting gatherings and working with people one-on-one, or sorry, working with people in person.
Right. Nice. So then if you focus on just that, just what you want, what would let's say you had that, let's say you had the in-person clients or one-on-one in groups, and it was in person or a hybrid or, something more towards what you want, what would having that do for you?
It would help me feel less isolated, which the online space has really kind of created for me, just over years. It would give me a sense of being able to foster community in an area that I feel could really benefit from it.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. And then why that particular offering? Why host groups and why one-on-one? You could just get a job at a store and interact with a lot of people and feel like you have community and not feel isolated.
Yeah, that's a good question. I love the creative aspect of organizing an event or organizing a program where I can set an intention for it and then get creative in the ways that I can bring that intention into life through practices, through conversations, through prompts that we explore together. I think that's one of the pieces that's been bringing me the most fulfillment is just being able to get creative about putting together offerings that I feel help people connect with themselves more deeply. It feels really special to be in that role where I can not only help people with that, but witness it and just be present to these processes that people are experiencing.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I'm curious, what might you lose that you value in order to have this happen?
True. Yeah, you spoke to the job piece, and while I've shifted so much and already into my own work and um, scaling back the hours that I'm working for others, um, but I feel that's something that I'm feeling more ready to give up even further is that reliable paycheck to just trust and dive in. Um,
Yeah, and I know, it's always this dance that a lot of people have to carry of the paycheck versus your own potential for a paycheck. Um, and I'm wondering, like, what is it that keeps you from holding on to the paycheck more than creating maybe more money doing your own thing?
yeah, I mean, it's I think a few things. The biggest is probably that I really care about the people that I work with. Um, I feel that there are strong friendships that are involved, and so there's this piece of I don't want to sort of leave you. Like I want to be here for you, and also there um, there are groups in the medicine space, and so I also feel like I want to keep a foot. I want to stay tethered to this world of these medicines that have been so impactful for me. I want to continue to explore how I can bring them into the work that I do. And so, yeah, those two points are like keeping me from wanting to fully step out.
Yeah, thank you. And do you think if you fully step into your work that you can't be connected to these people as friends or a community anymore? Is it going to just end, or like what is the fear there that
Mm.
there's?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't necessarily think that I would lose the connections or friendships. Um, yeah, I think it's more so wanting to not leave anyone in the dust, like yeah, without. I suppose I just feel a bit of an obligation, and I don't. That word might even just be a bit harsh, but I feel like I want to help. I want to help other people's dreams, and I know that, and I'm just feeling this tension between wanting to really take mine off or take off with my dreams, but also wanting to help others achieve theirs as well.
Yeah, thank you. And that's great that you care enough about others to not leave them in the dust. But I would love to know, like, how do you leave someone in the dust? Like, what does that look like versus not leaving someone in the dust?
Yeah, I think it's just, am I there to provide help with tasks, I guess, if I put it plainly. Yeah. I'm either there to take on something that I'm asked to do or not. And I suppose that's what I mean by leaving in the dust is then leaving all the tasks on their plate.
Have you ever had other jobs in the past, like working for other people?
Yeah.
And did you ever have to leave those jobs?
Yeah. And I think the different piece there is the friendship aspect.
course. Yeah. And I just, and yeah, I get it, I'm only bringing this up to point out the fact that, people do leave jobs, especially if it's for a positive reason, which is going more into your own work. But I personally, I do believe, and I know because I coach people with this every day who have full-time jobs, part-time jobs, and they're still doing their business. It's more about trying to figure out a way to do both without burning yourself out. And there should be a way, and that's more getting into the nitty-gritty of like, well, do you have a clear plan to bring your dreams forward? Are you clear what the steps are that you need to be doing? And if I'm curious, like the steps that you believe that you need to be doing with your business, what excuse me, what takes up so much time?
Yeah. I mean, the word that's coming to mind is just like admin. um, I love the ideating, the drawing visions out and imagining what they might look like, and then it's a piece of implementation. And so, when I have this idea for an event, I could have the idea fleshed out in my mind almost instantly, but then there comes creating the event page and and so on, the marketing and all of that. That's definitely the more time consuming piece, and I think a bit why I'm feeling that need also to step back from these other commitments, because it's also a lot of like admin heavy stuff, and my body is like just becoming so resistant to spreadsheets and Google Docs and Eventbrite.
Well, that's interesting. So your business would mean like a lot of admin to get things going and set up. But then are you saying that you do a lot of admin for these other people too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, there's definitely an energetic difference that I notice when it's something I'm doing for my own business. Like there's not that sort of, I have to do this today. It's like, okay, yeah, no, these are the steps that I need to do to be able to bring this idea that I have that I'm excited about. But there is a bit of that when it's like, okay, now I'm doing these tasks and it's not bringing me closer to realizing these goals that I have for myself.
When you're not doing the tasks for your own work, you don't believe it's bringing you closer to your goals?
Well, I suppose, I mean, I could be doing the same tasks and they're either in service to this program that I'm offering or these events that I'm putting together, or they're in service of someone else's offering, someone else's events that they're putting together. And as I mentioned before, like I want to be able to help in that way, but yeah, just also feeling like if I have to be doing that stuff and I want to minimize how much time I'm spending on doing it, then it makes sense to really just focus on my own projects. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's interesting. It's like, it's kind of like, okay, one or the other, or you could do both, but maybe it's a lot. And yeah, there is a choice point eventually, I think, where it's like, well, I mean, and maybe there's a happy medium of shifting time and energy, but also, yeah, it's good to realize. I mean, I know because that's actually how I became an entrepreneur, is because I was working for so many startups and helping launch other people's businesses. And it finally hit me like, wait a second, I have no problem doing this for others, but I can't seem to do it for myself. And that's where, it's like, the way I see it, it's like great if you have the experience doing it for others then it should be very easy to do it for yourself. It's just a matter of like, okay, if they're expecting it done by a certain day and time, the only difference is that now you have to be the boss for yourself, which is setting your own deadlines. Like, okay, I have to do this by a certain day and time, and maybe trying it that way, where it's like, well, what if you were working for yourself as the person paying you, and setting up the same kind of expectations and deadlines where it's like the energy is actually the same. Like it's the same energy because you have to do it or else they get upset or you potentially lose your job. And you do this for yourself because you would get upset and potentially lose your business, A lot of it's really like a mindset shift of becoming our own boss. I mean, it's definitely not easy. And I see this happen with a lot of clients where it's like, well, how do I even tackle a to-do list? How do I even start a to-do list? How do I execute on tasks when there's no boss that I have to report to? There's no deadlines really. But that's where it's important to learn how to be accountable for yourself and set your own deadlines, which obviously you've done if you've offered this in the past and had some success with it. Like you already know how to do this.
Yeah, I would say I do just fine there. And I, in case I switched up my wording, um, and brought some confusion, it's when I'm working on my own, doing these tasks for myself, that I'm excited and into it and like prioritizing them. Like I'll knock it out right away, no problem. And then it's when it's not for myself that I find my feet kind of dragging, and even if there is a deadline, it's like it's just hard to work out that motivation piece, and I'll distract myself by going and working on my own stuff. And yeah, so I feel kind of dialed in that sense of the getting things prioritized and done. It's just a bit harder with those things that aren't necessarily for my own business.
Yeah. Good. Thanks. Thank you so much. So then what's truly stopping you if you're already spending some time on your own thing and it's getting you excited and you're dragging your feet on other people's things? What stops you from then offering this, I don't know, a week from now or a week and a half, 2 weeks?
Phew. Yeah, I suppose just making that decision, making that choice to yeah, officially step back from those other roles and just say, hey, I really value our friendship and I want to be here for support, but I'm in this position where I really need to foster and nurture this vision, this dream that I'm creating. And I'm ready to go share this program again. And maybe in the future, I'm catching myself and like keeping the door open. Which, there's an element of wanting that. It's like both, or there's been so much growth that I've experienced, and the reason that I'm able to do the things that I'm doing right now with my own business is very much from all that I've learned and these other roles. But yeah, I think if I could just sort of give myself that deep breath of removing from my plate at this moment, then there's nothing stopping me from sharing about this, today, and trying to get it going.
Thank you. I'm also wondering, if you did run the 8-week program at the same time you're working for other people, what takes up a lot of the time in that? Like, what do you fear would just be like, like too much or overwhelming if you're working for others? Like, you mentioned like having just like limited time commitment, or what is it? It takes a lot in the 8-week program.
Yeah, and that's a good question. It's been, the program has consisted of live calls, And so that's actually something I've been exploring in this process of sort of um, pausing between programs, is wanting to offer a version where instead of doing a live yoga class a week, a live meditation and somatic practice, and a live movement practice and a
In
coaching
1 week?
practice. Yeah. And
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
it's a lot. And I could recognize that it was a lot for the people I was working with too. And so that was another piece where I'm like, okay, I need to integrate and deal with this, because the people who are coming to me are people who are burnt out, they're tired, they have too much on their plate, and they don't need a program overloading their plate. Um, and so, yeah, I'm incubating this idea of turning it into a sort of self-paced. Everything is recorded. There's an option to do a weekly live call with me, just to sort of share with me about where they're at in the process, and receive that feedback and that reflective listening. Yeah, and so then it's just been like in my schedule, finding time to then record all these other components.
Thank you. The one thing I'm curious, have you ever finished a complete self-paced online course yourself?
Um,
Like 100%
a
complete?
100%.
Don't worry, I've been asking this to a lot of people lately. It's kind of funny.
Probably not. No,
I never have.
I've maybe gotten close, like
Yeah.
a couple times, but yeah, no.
Trust me, I get it. I'm like, there's one I bought recently, but I usually now I know. I'm like, well, I know I'm not going to do this, but I'm only going to go to the live calls, and that was enough for me. And I'm like, well, maybe one day I'll watch these, but that's something I have. It's come up a lot lately because I always ask people to get very real about it, and it's like, well, it sounds nice, and it does sound, especially if it's yoga or somatic movements or meditations, and I'm running a Rose Dieta now that has some meditations that people I know are listening to, but that's it. It's like there's nothing more than just a couple meditations. But I wonder if and this is just an idea. Have you considered maybe making it just spread out longer, but like less, especially if it's for people who are already overwhelmed or burned out? That's where I say, like, wow, overwhelmed people are usually the last people that are going to watch any videos. I mean, maybe if they're like, oh, wow, this is great. Now I have a twice a week yoga practice that I didn't have. Maybe, but yeah.
That's a great point. And it's reminding me that when I first developed this program, the idea was to incorporate a sense of spaciousness. And so I had it as like a multi-month program where each step of the path that we follow has a solid 2 to 3 weeks. And at some point I received the feedback that, 4+ months is just too long of a container for some people. But yeah, now I can say, looking back at it and knowing, like, if I were to go through this program, and I've been through programs that are similar in a way of how they're structured. That spaciousness, having a few weeks to work on, like one step is really helpful.
Yeah. And the feedback from people, I always say you have to take it with a grain of salt, because everybody will have every suggestion. I mean, I've been told to run my group program with, weekly calls, with private calls every month, and I'm like, well, then it becomes not a group program, and then it becomes a private program. And there are things that I've changed or I've added because a few people suggested it, and I'm like, oh, that actually does sound like a cool idea. But the real question I always ask is, what do you believe that this kind of client, like this ideal client for this program, really needs? Like, how long will it take them to make major changes in their life, or whatever it is, like habits, or for them to incorporate this in and develop a practice. Like how long do you think it really would take, like, in just kind of the average person that would be the kind of people you'd have for this program? Like, how long would it take them for that?
Really? Yeah, it's a really great question. And if I don't know that there's one clear answer, especially because everyone's coming to it from a different place. Knowing that I've been running it as an 8-week program and that each week having all the things is a bit much. I think that maybe a 4-month program where there's 2 weeks for each stage, there's no more added in, but that way they can slow things down a bit. That number feels good, because then also 4 months of developing these habits and ways of being or showing up in a way that feels more aligned for them. That feels like a good length of time to be practicing that with a group or with me for that accountability piece, to then be able to not need that guidance necessarily afterward. But the idea of the program is that by the end of the 4 months, they've integrated it into their lives enough in a way that they can carry forward.
Yeah. And yeah, that's something to consider, is how to make it work for you and your time, and also serve them. This is actually, it's a principle I teach inside of all my programs about, like, really having to put you and your needs and your desires, your life, your time, your energy, your family, your commitments, like, here. And it's actually just as important as serving the clients. There's a lot of myth that people think, like, oh, well, the clients always come like higher. It's like, well, no, if we're not really feeling sustained, balanced, if it's not regenerative, and if it's starting to burn us out or overwhelm us, or the opposite, maybe it's boring us, then it's like it becomes out of balance. But if it's really at this place of, like, taking you, your life, your schedule, everything into account first, and then asking yourself, like, what would really serve the client the best? Like, what's truly better for this kind of person? Well, let's see, they're really busy, and maybe they do need more time, and maybe it'd be better to have less calls, and maybe there's a voice app instead, or, there's like 1,000 ways of going about it. But it really has to be this kind of even you and them, so that it's really sustainable. And then, of course, at the top of the pyramid, I actually have a diagram. The top of the pyramid is your mission. Like, why this, why you, why this, why them, why now? And when all three of those are balanced, then it really just becomes a regenerative business that excites you and feels good, and it doesn't feel overwhelming, and it actually can work into having a job or having a part-time job, or a lot of my clients have families, or they're single moms, or even clients that homeschool. Like, how do you do this? But they do it, and there's always a way to make it work so it works into your life. And then you can kind of make the right decisions when it comes to reducing other things that maybe you just don't want or don't align. But I think very often I see a lot of people where it's like kind of just taking a bird's eye view and, like, thinking, like, well, how do I still do what I love and make it work for me in my life? It's like, if that just means changing the structure or the time frame or the amount of items they get. And I do see that a lot with a lot of tendency. It's a very common thing, a tendency to want to give so much stuff, because especially if it's, I don't know, $5,000 program, it's like, well, then I feel like I have to give so much. And it's like, well, if someone's making a major change in their life and they're going from burnout to calm and they're finally feeling really good, how much money is that worth? You know,
Mm.
it's not really about like the money versus the items they get. It's about like, what are they coming for? Where are they now? And where are they going to be when they leave? You know, and very often, like you said, it's like just holding that space. Like we don't need to do anything on some level. I mean, you know, I'm a business coach, so there are a fair amount of things that I teach that are like doing, like action items. But, you know, and that's where I say it's not so much about like the things, but it's more about the journey. Like, what's the overall journey? If they're here and they know that they need some help with their, you know, their health, their wellness, their practice, their presence, their nervous system, and then they finally figure out how to um, be a calmer person and have a calmer life and be more present and get their, you know, mind, body, spirit into shape, then okay, well, like, did they really need this and that and this and that? So that's because a lot of my clients go through this. So I say, like, okay, take a look at your offering and ask, like, what do they really need and what are they really getting the most benefit from? You know, maybe some things could just be bonuses, sure, but you know, and where is it coming from when it comes to you? Is it coming from a place of truly like what is going to serve them the best, or is it coming from some other place of like, well, I feel the need to give more calls or give more practices or give more bonuses? And, you know, not saying that's what you're doing, but it's always good to really like ask that question of like, okay, is this coming from part of me that doesn't feel like it's worthy or it's of value? Or that I must have more to make them want to buy this or want to pay for it. You know, does any of that resonate?
Yeah, a lot of it, all of it. Um, yeah, when you asked the question of what is it that they really need, the thought that came up in my mind is just like, you know, I've been doing a lot of reflecting around how so many of us just need space to slow down and simplify. And so that was what came through when you asked the question of what do they really need. I feel that in a lot of cases, the people who are coming to me, they just need permission to slow down. And if I'm throwing a lot of stuff at them to do, then I'm not giving them that permission. And instead, you know, they're feeling, I mean, hopefully not, but maybe a bit of shame around, oh, I still haven't gotten around to watching that video.
Mm.
And I can say it like it's okay as over and over again, but they're still feeling that. So yeah, how can I simplify the program in a way that creates a safe and supportive space for them to then simplify and slow down? And yeah, I don't think that looks like giving them all the tasks to do. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's so good to be able to do that and look back and say like, okay, where is this coming from? You know, like to really question like, okay, is this in service to them or is it in service to some part of me? You know, like a protector or a coping mechanism, or and not saying this is you, but I just see this so much. And to really come back to that place of like, well, you know, yeah, maybe you don't want to create, you know, like it might even be a deterrent. I mean, I know because there was a particular program I wouldn't sign up for 3 years because I kept asking how much homework there was. And they warned me that there was a ton of homework. And so when I finally did it, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And then I still actually didn't do the homework. Which is, it's a whole other thing. They purposely overwhelmed people with homework for many reasons. But, you know, and that's where it's like, well, you know, think about like, what is it that this ideal client really wants and needs right now? And like, what would really serve them and what would feel good to you to make it work into your life, to make it feel very sustainable. And also, you know, be able to bring your life into balance where like, okay, maybe you keep the job or maybe it's a cutback or maybe there's another, you know, there's a way. But, you know, I mean, I always really know that everything is happening perfectly as it's supposed to, but I always tell people like, if you're really like putting aside your dreams and your goals, especially for someone else, like there is a point where you start to get to where you say like, okay, how much longer am I going to do this? And there's nothing wrong with it. I know because I did it for a very long time and I had an awareness, but there was a point where it was like, okay, it's like now or never, or like you've just gotten so much, confidence and faith in yourself or belief, like, okay, this is going to bring me much more fulfillment. And also, it's like the energy. I always say it's like not even the money, but it's really like what energizes you the most. Where's the energy at? Like what would really bring you like that true depth of like I'm living my life the way I want to be living it. And I'm never unrealistic about jobs. Like for anyone that's been in my container, I know I never tell people to quit. I usually discourage people from quitting until they're really at a point where their business, it's clear to them. Like it's clear that people want this. It's clear that I can do it. It's clear that I'm willing to like do what it takes. And it's usually like you'll know, like you'll just know. Or, maybe it does get so busy in your business that you're like, I can't do the job anymore. But, I know this because you've had other jobs, but you can always give people, a few months notice, like months. And that way, there's no friend out there that would, be upset if you gave them a month or 2 months, 3 months, notice to fulfill your dreams. And honestly, if a friend was upset over that because you're going after your dreams and you're giving them a fairly ample notice, then I don't know. That's questionable because friends want friends to be happy, right? And succeed.
Yeah.
And maybe there's always opportunity. I always say it's like you never know what's going to transpire. Like the universe might have bigger plans in store for you. So
Yeah.
How's this feel?
I feel more clear on a lot of this than I have been. It's a lot of what I've shared today has been these thoughts sort of swirling through my mind that I haven't sat down and like really questioned myself on. So it was helpful, and I really appreciated the questions that you brought forward because it caught me in some ways of thinking where I just sort of like, yeah, this is just how it is. And then you ask a question and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that's not, that's not all it is. So yeah, I feel more clarity around what it is that I want to do and how I want to share what I've been incubating.
Wonderful. That's so good to hear.
Oh,
well, we'll just close by letting you share a little bit more about where can people find you. If you know what you're offering when next, but otherwise, like how can people stay in touch for when this is coming out?
Yeah. Thank you for the space to offer that. You can find me on social media. My username is at Holistic Fit Guide. I have a website, holisticfit.life. And I post my events there, my offerings. If you'd like to learn more about this Embodied You program that I'm offering, and knowing that now there are some beautiful shifts happening in the way the program is delivered, inspired by today's conversation, I'm envisioning starting it again, the next round in January as a group program. I think just, get past the holidays. I know that there's a lot of busyness and just people having their plates overwhelmed. So January is when I plan to offer this again. So you can reach out to me. My email is Lacey@holisticfit.life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see what transpires. And please, I always love to hear any follow-up when it launches or any aha moments. And if anything came out of this, please let me know. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beth. This has been great.
Thanks for being another test subject. I really love it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.